Welcome students to lesson 20 of the Living World topic. In this and the final lesson of the Living World module, we are going to be studying desertification, which is the process in which deserts grow. I'm going to show you how it is caused mostly by human activity, and why it is one of the greatest threats not only to people, but also to the environment today. Please write the date, title and learning objective, and have a pen and paper ready to learn. Time to review prior learning. Write 1 to 10, answer the questions from memory, and then mark your answers. Game time. Number 1. The intense daytime heat in the Thar Desert reduces worker productivity, which leads to lower incomes. 2. The heat in the desert also causes damage to roads, which means transport infrastructure is limited. 3. People in the Thar have adapted to the lack of precipitation by constructing reservoirs called johads, which store water until the next rainfall. 4. Due to the shortage of rainfall and infertile land, people are often nomadic in the Thar, which means they are constantly on the move. 5. Rainforest trees have drip-tip leaves, which are waxy and have pointed tips that allow water to fall off easily. 6. Rainforests cover only 6% of the land on Earth, but contain 50% of all wildlife. 7. The Amazon Fund is an international agreement between Norway, Germany and Brazil to protect the Amazon rainforest. 8. Rainforests are carbon sinks, which means they absorb CO2 and so mitigate climate change. 9. Palm oil is a cash crop grown in Malaysia that is used in more than 400 products worldwide. 10. The second coldest biome, located in the north of Russia and Canada, is called the tundra. Give yourselves a mark out of 10. If you got 8 or more, I salute you. Please write any questions that you got wrong and their answers, and then test yourselves on these questions repeatedly until you know them. To introduce the topic of desertification in these final 2 lessons, I'm going to show you a photo, and then some questions will come by it. Use the knowledge that you've gained from this topic and others to see if you can answer these questions. Go for it. Here are the questions. Here's the photo. So question 1, why do deserts lack vegetation? Well, you should have said that vegetation requires regular rainfall, precipitation, and consequently, since deserts lack rainfall, or have a maximum of 250 millimeters per year, vegetation struggles to grow. There are other reasons that we are going to discover today, one of which is the heat, which damages plants. 2. How does a lack of vegetation affect the nutrient cycle in deserts? Well, you should have said that the nutrient cycle depends on dead organic matter being decomposed into soil and then being recycled into the roots of plants. Well, the lack of vegetation means that there is less organic matter to decompose. Consequently, the soil is less fertile and so vegetation cannot grow. With less vegetation, you have fewer consumers, animals. 3. How might people's activities make land less fertile, which means able to grow vegetation? This is the topic of this lesson, but you may have said so far that people might use deforestation to gain an income, which may damage the land, and I'll show you how. You may have said that agriculture could cause damage to the land, causing a lack of fertility. I'll show you how that happens as well. There are other causes and human activities that lead to land infertility. Join me this lesson, you'll find out. 4. Climate change is making deserts expand. How might this be? Well, climate change, as you know, is about the change in the patterns of temperature and rainfall around the world. In some parts of the world, rainfall is getting less regular, or less rainfall in a place overall per year. This means that there is less water for plants to grow, consequently allowing deserts to expand, as you see in this photo. In this lesson, we're going to go deeper into these 2 questions. What is desertification, and what is causing it? Let's go. 2 key words you need to know. The first one is about this. This is a particular biome which is the most affected biome by desertification. It is the savanna grasslands, found in almost every continent around the world. This land here is said to be fertile land because crops can be grown. So, two key phrases. Please write them and their definitions. Okay, first question. What is desertification? Please write the subtitle and underline it with a ruler. This photo shows the typical process of desertification. The desert on the left here is moving towards the right. But how does that happen, and what do we actually mean when we say this? So let me show you some images that will help you to understand it better. This storyboard flow diagram shows the process of desertification from fertile land to a desert. So how does it happen? Well, in fertile land you have lots of soil with nutrients in that allow crops and plants to grow, to the extent that you have forest here. However, human activities such as fires, deforestation and agriculture lead to a loss of vegetation. This loss of vegetation leads to soil erosion. The soil that contains the nutrients that allow plants to grow gets swept away. I will show you more in detail about how that happens, as a result of human activities such as these. As a result of soil erosion, the nutrients are lost, and so the land becomes infertile. It becomes like a desert. And so the formal definition of desertification is this. Please write this definition in your book so that you understand it. Second question. Where is desertification happening? This map and its link in the top left, which you can find in the description below the video, shows the different levels of aridity, which means dryness, around the land masses of the world. Desertification is happening mostly in the semi-arid climates of the world. That is, on the fringes, which means the edges of deserts. The most arid deserts are shown by this light yellow colour and this slightly darker yellow colour. These are the deserts. And desertification is happening on the edge of deserts, for example, this orange area, semi-arid areas. So here in the western and central USA, here, south of the Sahara Desert, here in the temperate grasslands of Central Asia, and here in eastern Australia. We're going to focus on two key places today and in the next lesson, and I'm going to show you three right now on this map. The first is the Thar Desert. If you see, the Thar Desert is mostly semi-arid area, and in the west of the Thar Desert you have an arid desert. That looks like this. And I'll show you how desertification is increasing because of human activity. Additionally, this is Australia, which has a spreading desert as well, largely due to human activity. And finally, the Sahel, which is this long band of more than 2,500 miles spreading across sub-Saharan Africa. So the Sahel separates the Sahara from sub-Saharan Africa, which is the area below it. And it is a long semi-arid area that is becoming more like a desert over time, again due to human activity. So the key idea that you need to know is that desertification is affecting almost a third of the land on Earth, more than 110 countries, and it is happening mostly in the world's semi-arid areas, on the fringes of hot desert environments. Okay, the most important question today is, why is desertification happening? What are the causes? Write this subtitle, please, and underline it. The first human cause of desertification, in the Sahel in particular, is deforestation. So why does deforestation happen so much in the Sahel? Well, these countries that occupy the Sahel are almost entirely LICs, and they have large rural populations. And these people depend on wood for burning, which is used to cook food. This is called fuel wood. Consequently, every day members of rural communities go out into the brush and into the savannah and chop down trees in order to supply themselves with wood to cook. This is a problem for two reasons. First, it causes desertification, as you will find out in a second, but also it is incredibly damaging to human health. The wood burners in the fires that they use in people's homes in the Sahel countries release many harmful chemicals into the air, which are responsible for more than 120,000 deaths per year across Africa. So how does deforestation cause desertification? Well, it's all to do with this. Plants and trees have roots beneath the ground, and these roots act like little fingers holding the soil together, so that if you pull a plant out of a plant pot, all the soil comes with it. This plant is preventing the soil from moving. Consequently, it is trapping the nutrients within the soil and the water. The water can't flow away, and neither can the nutrients. So you can set up an experiment to demonstrate the importance of plants in holding soil in the ground. You can have two containers. One with soil with grass growing on top of it, and one with bare soil. And then you can pour water over the top of these two containers, and what you find is that out of the container with the grass, clean water comes out. But out of the container with no grass, with just bare soil, muddy water comes out. So why is that? Well, in the container with vegetation, the grass holds on to all the soil and prevents it from being washed out by the rainfall, by you adding water. So only clean water leaves. Additionally, much less water leaves the container with the grass than does the container without. So two things happen because of this. Number one, here, more nutrients have left the ground because the soil containing the nutrients has been washed out. Number two, more water passes out of the ground after it rains. It doesn't get absorbed into the ground. Vegetation prevents soil erosion. Why is that important? Because if it rains on bare ground, or it blows heavily wind on bare ground, this drags and erodes the soil away very easily. And that leads to soil erosion. All the nutrients in the ground are found in the soil. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, they are the nutrients that provide food for plants to grow. And they are washed out as the soil is eroded away by the wind or the rain. Deforestation allows soil erosion to happen. And because the nutrients are lost, the land becomes infertile. And consequently, vegetation cannot grow, agriculture cannot happen, and the land has become like a desert. It has similar levels of precipitation to a desert, and it also has infertile land, just like a desert, rocky or sandy, but no soil. So desertification is mainly caused by deforestation around the world, which is principally the result of LICs requiring large amounts of fuel wood. But that's not all. Agriculture in the Sahel is a big problem for the fertility of the land as well. Overgrazing. What is that? Again, a large number of people in the Sahel region of Africa depend on agriculture and cattle ranching, livestock farming for their incomes and for their food. Subsistence farmers who grow food and livestock for eating, and commercial farmers who grow food to sell, both do this. So what exactly is overgrazing? Well, a farmer may have a herd of cattle or sheep or goats, and they will keep them on the land for as long as possible until they've eaten all of the vegetation, so that the animals are fed. This means that the loss of vegetation has the same effect as the loss of trees. Now, why does overgrazing not happen in nature? Well, because herds of animals, like cows, have predators, like lions, which scare them away. And as a result, these animals move on from the land before they can eat all the vegetation, protecting the land from soil erosion. Additionally, Overcultivation of the land is a major problem. So what is overcultivation? Well, here you see cultivated land and here you see uncultivated land. What's the difference? Here the land has been ploughed by metal ploughs being pulled behind either cattle, like ox, or by tractors. Ploughing the land, cultivating the land, churns up the soil and loosens it, which means two things happen. Number one, it can be easily blown away by the wind or washed away by rainfall. And number two, it kills the plants and destroys the roots that hold the soil together. The combined effect of this is that you have soil erosion in the same way as you get from deforestation, because both of these processes, overgrazing and overcultivation, they expose the land to wind and to rain by removing vegetation and by loosening soil. As a result of soil erosion, as before with deforestation, nutrients are lost, and so again you get infertile land. Farmers in African countries in the Sahel overgraze and overcultivate the land because they are desperate for food for survival. Additionally, they have little other source of income, so they must try to produce as much food and yield from the land as they can in order to survive. That is why it's such a big problem in this region of the world. Additionally, the more infertile the land gets, the more farmers need to move their herds around to other areas of fertile land, thereby destroying more areas of land and eating too much vegetation elsewhere. Overcultivation, the same reason. So agriculture is another major cause of desertification in the LICs especially of the world. But again, that's not all. Climate change is perhaps the main human-caused activity that is accelerating desertification around the world. How is it doing this? There are two forces of climate change that are causing the expansion of deserts. The first is this. This is a map showing the change in the patterns of and amounts of rainfall around the world. If it's orange, it means there's going to be less rainfall in these regions. And if it's dark blue, it means there's going to be more. Well, what you notice is that the Sahel here is predicted and is already having less precipitation annually. Consequently, the land is less able to support vegetation, and so there are fewer roots to hold soil together, and so there is increased soil erosion. But that's not all. Climate change also means increased temperatures around the world. The Sahel, as you see here, may not get the highest temperature increase compared to, say, the areas near the poles, but it will still increase. Higher temperatures mean more evaporation of rainfall as it hits the ground. More evaporation means less water reaching the soil into the ground and also providing water for plants to grow. It means farmers are less able to store water in order to use it for farming. And it means more soil erosion. As the land becomes harder and dried out because of the higher temperatures, the rainfall does not infiltrate into the ground, and so it travels over the ground quickly as surface runoff, leading to increased soil erosion as the fast-moving water carries the nutrients in the soil with it. Climate change is causing desertification as well because it leads to migration. Farmers move from areas of desertified land as a result of climate change to more areas of land where they can find other opportunities for farming. This causes conflict as farmers encroach, which means come onto land owned by someone else, on other people's land, and that threatens the opportunities for the farmers who live there, as they now have to compete with more farmers. This is one of the main causes of conflict in areas of semi-arid climates, such as in the Sahel. Less vegetation as a result of climate change leads to more soil erosion. This gully here has been carved out by rainfall. Soil and nutrients have travelled down the gully and away. And as you see here, you are left with bare, rocky land where very few plants can grow. And these people are on the move as migrants, because there's no longer an opportunity to farm here productively. They can't make an income from it, and they can't have enough food from it, so they have to move. Time to assess learning. First question. What is soil erosion? Soil erosion is the removal of the top layer of the ground of the earth, called soil, which is made of decomposed organic matter and weathered rocks, by rainfall or wind. Question 2. How does vegetation prevent soil erosion? Trees and plants have roots. Roots hold the soil together and therefore prevent it from being washed away, but they also trap water, which allows the further growth of plants, and it allows nutrients to be dissolved in the soil. Question 3. Why is deforestation such a problem in LICs in semi-arid areas? Deforestation is largely a problem because people depend on fuel wood in order to cook for their livelihoods. That is also significant because LICs have a high proportion of rural people who cook and provide food for their families in this way. And finally, how would you define desertification from memory? Desertification is the degradation of land, which means the reduced quality of land, leading to the land becoming more like that of a desert, infertile. Okay, time to embed learning. I'm going to show you some questions. Write them out, answer them using your understanding, and then mark your answers. Go for it. So 2 marks. Describe the location of the Sahel in Africa. You need to give me the overall pattern and then specifics. Key point. The Sahel stretches from the Senegal in West Africa to Somalia in the east. And it's a semi-arid area of land. 2. Explain how vegetation prevents soil erosion. You need 3 of these points. Keywords. Intercepting rainfall. So the trees intercept rainfall with their leaves and their branches, which means that it hits the ground less forcefully and washes away soil much less. They also shade the soil from wind, meaning that less soil can be washed away. Key points. Make sure you have all of them. 3. Outline the difference between overcultivation and overgrazing. Make sure you have both of these. 4. Outline one cause of deforestation in the Sahel. You need both of these points. 5. Explain 2 ways that climate change is accelerating desertification. So you need to talk about the loss of precipitation and the increased temperatures. Make sure again that you've explained all of these points. Use the keywords that I have there. Give yourselves a mark out of the total. Be very strict with yourselves. Make sure you add in green pen any parts that you missed. Go back through the explanations of the video to reinforce your understanding. From the lesson, write 2 questions. Answer them from memory, and then test yourselves in a week's time. I would strongly recommend you watch this video after completing this lesson to reinforce your understanding further. In the final lesson of the Living World topic, we are going to be looking at a more hopeful subject, which is how can we solve desertification and so protect the livelihoods of millions of people around the world. Join me then.